Well, welcome back to Session 5, Part 2 of Experiencing LeaderShift. How's it going, Coach? I know that many of you are, again, working hard. This is kind of new information for some of you, affirmation for others of you, but we just want to affirm you again for the work you're doing. You're doing a good work, and God will bring fruit in your life as a result of that. Well, as we talk about coaching, one of the things we want to do in team is God does want fruit, and fruit is growth. Not that we aspire to the numbers, but it seems to be an indication. And yet sometimes we do things in ministry that hinder or sabotage that very effort. But Don, you have kind of talked about kind of 4 aspects of how we can expand our ministries, and I think it'd be very appropriate here to talk about what are those models by which we can expand ministry.
Right. We want to be intentional about creating vehicles by which ministry can expand. Because obviously all of us want to see God do a greater and greater work in more and more people's lives. And God wants to use us to be a part of that. And so there are some ways in which you can expand your ministry. Okay? And these are incremental steps. And we kind of start with stage 1 and end with stage 4, which is where we want to go. So stage 1 in the process is that you grow in your capacity to do ministry. And the way you do this is simply by becoming more organized, becoming more efficient, becoming more disciplined. You become more effective in your role such that the time it once took to do this particular job now takes this much time to do a job. You know, it took me a lot longer to prepare messages 25 years ago than it does today. And that's simply because after 25 years, I've learned a few things, and my understanding of the Word has increased over the years. So one of the first ways that you expand your ministry is simply by growing personally in your own capacity.
So what you're saying then is if I'm growing personally, my capacity to minister and impact others around me increases. But that's limiting because I only can go so far.
Right, that's going to end pretty soon. No matter how disciplined you become, no matter how efficient you become, no matter how skilled you become, it's only going to take you so far.
Maybe it's the next conference that would help me do that.
Yeah, right. Okay, the next book. I think it was mine, wasn't it? All right. Stage 2 is by addition. That's when you bring another person into your sphere of responsibilities and you share the load with them. So you bring a person on board and you say, here's my list of responsibilities. There's 10 of them. Would you take these 3?
Right.
And so as a result, now 2 people can do more than 1 person. And that's expansion by addition. And again, that'll take you, to a new level. But again, that's going to end pretty quick.
Right.
All right?
Because you can only handle even spans of care, we talk about that gets limited at some point. So some may have more capacity, but again, there's still a wall.
Right. And so we go to stage 3, which is expansion or growth by multiplication. And that's when instead of bringing 1 person into your sphere, you bring in a team of people into your sphere, maybe 6 or 8 people into your sphere. And through this team that you've been building, which we've been talking about in terms of connecting and even coaching, now this team of people is beginning to share the responsibility for what you have on your plate. And you're divvying out those responsibilities. So now when you could only do 10 things, and then expand it to 13 or 14 because you added a person, now you can add 20 or 30 because you've got 6 or 8 people who have jumped into into your ministry.
Well, Don, sometimes you've talked about the difference between managing and leading, and I almost feel like that's a part of this is that if you're managing people and really having to give that firsthand touch, again, it's limiting. But when you lead people, then they have a direction, and you can really get more accomplished through leadership.
Right. And eventually, what you want to do is move from managing to leading, and then eventually, which is stage 4, reproduction. Okay, reproduction. This is what Paul was saying to Timothy in 2 Timothy 2:2. And these things you've heard from me in the presence of many witnesses, and trust to faithful men who will be able to pass it on to others also. In that verse alone, we have 4 generations: Paul, Timothy, faithful men, others also. Reproduction is when you now take your responsibilities, you've built into somebody to the point where you can now say to them, you take over this ministry, and then you personally go on and build another ministry.
Now we have the hands-on mission team, and then we have about 9 pods around, and now I've launched them out to start their own pods, and so they draw people around them the same kind of way that I drew people around me. And then those pods develop into other pods once another equipper is trained from that area, and they just go on and on and on. So we're able to do 1,000 times more things, but also work with a lot more people who are actually serving and equipping others in the area mission.
And that's really the fulfillment of an equipper, when they can see the impact of those that they've poured into and coached now doing the work.
Right. And many years ago at Willow, I was really mentored with regard to doing this very thing. And God gave me the privilege to be a part of a church in the very beginning and had a responsibility to build ministries within the church. And so one by one, what God had called me to do, and I believe gifted me to do, was identify potential leaders, call them, connect them, coach them, and ultimately build into them to a point where I could say, now this ministry, you take it and run with it. And then I would go on and build the next ministry. And if you continue to do that with great intentionality over a period of years, you can expand a ministry significantly. So ultimately what you want to be about is reproduction. But it doesn't happen without building into someone's life and then passing a ministry on to them.
Well, let's pause here, Don, and give everyone a chance to then work on coaching, work on thinking through expanding your ministry, and who are you working at and with through each of these stages. So you're going to have some opportunity to really process this, and you have a little bit more post-session application work here, but again, it's to serve you well. And we want to finish the race and finish strong. We come back in session 6. We're going to talk about changing, and there's some very significant concepts there that will serve you and your team well. So look forward to seeing you soon.